Welcome to MetroCasting. I'm Doug Farley here with a very special guest. This is Sarah Salty Ferguson. Salty, as we like to call her, is from Orangeville. And if you've ever seen the movie A League of Their Own with Gina Davis and Tom Hanks, she was actually in that league back in the 1950s, the All-American Girls Baseball League, Professional Baseball League. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. So she was there in 1953 and 1954, and that was about the year they closed the league up in 54.
54.
So you got to close the place.
Yes.
Sadly, that's what happened.
It was like a death in the family for me.
It was a death for
no
you.
More baseball.
You were telling me before we started here that you were you were born in Orangeville, and you learned to play over at the Orangeville Carnival Grounds where they have a baseball field.
Yes.
You and your dad would go out and play, and you actually played baseball, no softball.
No.
You were kind of
the
tomboy.
Once in a while somebody would come and ask me in the summer, a lady that had a team, and I'd go maybe and play a couple games of softball, but that was never my thing.
It was baseball.
Baseball.
So what was it about baseball that just got your blood up, that made you want to do this?
I don't know. Dad took me a game when I was 4 or so, I guess, and when I got done, I fell in love with the game of baseball. When anybody asked me, what are you going to do? So I'm going to be a professional baseball player, not knowing such a thing exists anywhere in the country for women or girls.
And this was back in the 30s?
Yes. Well, yes.
30s
It would have been probably 40 or thereabouts.
So you were kind of the tomboy of the area. You played baseball with all the guys. They all knew you. They all wanted you to come play.
Right, right.
What was that about? Why did they want you to play so much?
Well, I don't know. Somebody told me one time after all these years went by, they said, you know, actually you were the best ball player in Orangeville except for Jim Unger.
Okay.
And I said, yes, I agree with that because Jim was an excellent. And I just went and played. I guess I thought I was good enough.
You were good enough
to play with.
How did you wind up getting into the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League?
Well, I'll tell you, I didn't even know anything about it. I was a senior in high school. My dream was still alive. Kids started saying, Salty, what are you going to do when you graduate? Big old me. I said, I'm going to play professional baseball. And I'm sure some of them laughed in my face or behind my back. They probably thought, boy, she's losing it, because there's no place to do that.
Right.
And but I just said, I'm going to play. And so what happened is Paul Wright, you knew old Paul Riker, not young Paul of today, but his uncle had an accident and health insurance company outside of Light Street. And I still say God up above sent him down to Allentown, Pennsylvania, to the home of another insurance man where they were having a meeting. He said, Salty, when I walked in that man's office, he said there were balls and pictures of girls around them. This goes through me when I tell it. There were balls and pictures of girls sitting all around. I immediately said to him, because Paul was a big fan of baseball, and he knew what I could do as a back girl with the men's team and stuff. And he said, I am a scout for the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League out in the Midwest. And Mr. Reichert immediately said, I know a girl can play there. He said, fine. He gave him his card, and he said, take this and give this to she or her parents and have them give me a call. So I'm sure I pestered my father to make that call. We didn't even have a phone in our home at the time. So my father had to make the phone call from his place of employment. So he called Mr. Schuler, and he was nice enough, him and his wife, to invite us down to their own private home the very next Sunday in Allentown, Pennsylvania. So Mom and Dad took me down, and Mr. Schuler took his glove and a ball, and I took my glove and my dad, and we went to a park, not a baseball park, just a park where you feed the squirrels, the birds, or something. And I threw him about 5 pitches, and he turned and started walking toward my dad and I thought, oh, gosh, I've done something wrong. You know, I hadn't touched the bat, I hadn't run, and you're not warmed up even at 5 pitches.
Right.
So he walked up to my dad, who was standing alongside of me, and he said, I'm sending her to the Rockford Peaches of the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, but just because I'm sending her does not mean she's made it. She will have to prove herself when she gets there, and I don't think my feet touched the ground from that point on.
No, that was your live stream.
Oh.
Well, you mentioned Rockford Peaches, and those who have seen A League of Their Own movie, well, they were the core team of that movie, the Rockford Peaches. You were actually on that team that was featured in that movie, and you were in the movie at the very end of it as well.
Yes, on the
I think
screen
you're
by
catching
myself.
a ball or throwing a ball or something.
Throwing the ball into the shortstop, and then if you look the next scene between the catcher and the batter, you see me walk up along a fence and I lean on the bat.
Oh.
And some of my friends must have timed me, and they said I had at least 8 seconds of fame.
8 seconds of fame in the
Catch
movie
the ball,
too.
throw it in, and then walk up in the...
You got on. It is an art form, and you did well on that.
Yeah.
People know the movie itself. How true was the movie to the actual league itself?
Well, it was, you know, the guys that wrote it were kind of, they Hollywoodize it, because
Sure.
that's what sells movies.
Right.
But basically, yes, the girls in the beginning did have to go to charm school. Thank God that was over when I got there. I might not have made it. Now, we wouldn't have been in that roadhouse where Madonna was dancing around.
Oh, no.
We'd have been home before we got started.
Oh,
Yes, we were always to be ladies
right.
at all times, but play baseball like men, and sometimes that's a little hard to accomplish. They used to say that I had a rifle arm, or
Okay.
they'd write in the press that I had a rifle arm. And
Well, when you got in the league, you
was-
threw 5 pitches. He knew right then, oh, man, she's got power.
Well, and my first love was catching.
Right.
Of course, I come in under an all-star catcher. So I didn't get maybe, 12 games, I think, or something like
When you
that.
say all-star catcher, that's who you would have had to replace, and she wasn't done
Yes,
playing
and
yet.
then there was another girl on the team. See, we only had 18 players total.
Okay.
That's with pitchers and everything.
Oh, wow.
Today they have 18 pitchers on a team,
Yeah.
and then all the other players.
Right.
So if you could play more in one position, as my dad, he got a hold of Johnny Rawlings,
Right.
who was a former big leaguer and my manager, and said, well, she can play anywhere you put her. So that was advantageous. So instead of catching, they put me out in right field. I heard something the other day on TV. I forget who was playing, the Phillies and somebody.
Mm-hmm.
And the guy said there, somebody threw a ball in from right field and cut the guy down home plate. And they said, well, you know, they tell me they always put the person with the best arm out in right field. Although most people think that's where they put the duds.
Right. It depends what league you're in.
Yes, I guess.
If it's professional, we
Yeah.
know where you really belong.
Yeah, I
so
guess.
that's good. You got that going for you. So you got that. You weren't necessarily known for your hitting, but had the league last a little bit longer, you feel you could have
I
actually
feel,
gotten
yes,
better.
I feel Johnny could have made me a decent hitter.
Because your first year in 53, you had 230. I got her stats right here. 234 at bats. You had 23 runs and 50 hits. And in 54, you got an injury. Mm-hmm. Tell us about the injury.
Well, I got hit in the right temple with a thrown baseball, and I had a brain concussion.
How did
Way
that
they're
happen?
talking about concussions now.
Well, yeah.
Well, I was on first base, and
Okay.
a girl hit a ground ball, and of course they got me out at second. So I just went over the bag, turned around, and started between the second base bag and the pitcher to get back to the dugout. And when I did, the girl at third threw that ball, and she hit me right square in the right
Accidentally?
temple. Well, I hope so.
That's because I'm like, whoa.
No, I don't think. No, I don't think it was.
There was no animosity.
It wasn't. No, it wasn't intentional.
Okay. Back to your stats in 54. Now that you had an injury, as we
Yes.
said, like that. So you only had 180 at bats. But by then, you had actually dropped your strikeouts from 39 the first season down to 9.
9, yes.
That's a big improvement.
Yes. And then I was starting to have maybe a couple doubles or something.
Yeah, you had a
so-
home run in 54
Yes.
and
yeah,
4
well,
doubles.
I think what happened there is it was a windy day, and I got the ball up in the air, and the wind carried
Home
it over
run's a
the
home
fence.
run.
It looks good on paper.
That looks good on paper, so you got that. So
Yes.
with time, you could have conceivably gotten even better at batting.
Yes, I believe Johnny had more time. He could have made me a decent hitter.
Were you there when they actually opened the exhibit?
Yes.
You were
yes.
there for the
I
grand
went
opening.
back for that. And they tell me now, I didn't see her. Of course, Penny Marshall, you know, she might have been in drag or something. I don't know. But I did not see her there. But they said she was there.
Penny
when we
Marshall was
opened.
there
Yes.
for the opening.
And
She was the director of the movie.
And you know, one thing they asked Penny here not too long ago, Penny, what was the greatest accomplishment that you've made so far? And she said, well, I think making the movie about the girls so that they got the recognition that they deserved.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty nice of her.
Before that movie came out, What was your recognition for? Were you recognized for being part of that league, or it wasn't even a thought anymore, was it? People
No.
hadn't talked about that in years.
We did. You know, that's why I say when I come home, we didn't talk a lot about what I did because nobody knew. It all took place out in the Midwest.
The Midwest, right.
So nobody around here knew a whole lot about it.
Just kind of forgotten.
Yeah. So when the movie came out, now this picture I'm going to show you was taken in 2002 with Penny Marshall. She and some of the girls came back to the Hall of Fame because that was the 10th year of the movie.
Right.
And there were pictures taken. I guess I just lucked out that they picked a picture with me and her together in it.
Did you have to have a job as well as play, or what did you do in the off season? So you played baseball in the summer and the spring, and then afterwards you would come back home.
In the off season, between my first year out there and the second, my dad got me a job I worked at the main Capitol building, Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Doing what?
Clerk typist, just a clerk typist. And before I left to go back to play ball, I asked the man, "Can you keep my job?" He said, "Well, I might not be able to keep the job you have right now, but you come back, we'll have a job for it." Well, then the regime changed, and of course, I'm not old enough to have politics, or I don't care about politics at that point. So I said, the guy I was going with at the time, I'm going to look for another job. He said, and the lady I worked with said, "Oh, Salty, don't. I know they'll keep you." She said, "I've been here for 20 years, no matter who was in power at the time.
Right.
And I know they'll keep you. They keep the good ones." Well, one girl had already got her pink slip.
Oh, wow.
So I said, "That's not going to happen to me." So the guy I was going with worked at the Olmsted Air Force Base, in Middletown. So down I go to take a civil service test. He said, "You can work for the federal government." So I got the job, and they wanted me to jump the job at the Capitol right off. And I said, no. I got 2 weeks' notice. You never know when you have to go back somewhere and ask for a job, so you don't just leave.
Don't burn those bridges.
So I went to Middletown, and while I was there, excuse me, they had a girls' semi-professional basketball team, which I played on. We were known as the Olmsted Angels. So I like to, excuse me, tell the kids today, there I was, 19 years old, and already in my life I've been a peach and an angel. Now, it doesn't get any better than that, right?
That's for sure.
So then I met the man that was to be my husband, and he lived out near Philly.
Right.
And I was too far away for him to commute, you know, and so forth. So I transferred to the U.S. Naval Air Development Center in Johnsville, Pennsylvania. They had a centrifuge there. Do you know? You know what that is.
Yep.
I got the honor of meeting all the original 7 astronauts. That's who they brought there. They put them in that centrifuge.
Wow.
To whirl them around to see how many G's of force they could stand before they grayed out. Bill and I were married in 1957. This was in 60.
Okay.
He had just been laid off of his job. So I said, what a wonderful opportunity to move back to God's country. This, to me, is God's country.
Orangeville.
Yes. So we
Roseburg
moved back, and my first son was born down at the old house down there in 1960. And, you know, and I drove bus for 45 years.
Drove a school bus for 45 years.
And Young Farm Supply. I worked for Norm Young up here for 20 years. Girl Friday.
So I think the question would be for some people, it doesn't bother you that you started out as a professional baseball player and then went to a job where you met the original 7 Mercury astronauts and then wound up back in Orangeville driving a bus? That doesn't bother you?
No. I love kids.
Yeah.
And I loved every minute of driving bus. I tried to get 50 years in, but I didn't quite make it.
Close. Amazing story. The movie, talk about how your life has changed from before the movie and then after the movie.
Before the movie, I don't know. Since the movie came out, I probably have given away between 15,000 and 20,000 baseball cards.
Wow.
That is the impact that movie had. When people found out, I feel, you know, they make too much of me sometimes. I just did what I loved.
What you love to do.
I just did what I loved to do.
If you had words of wisdom or an encouragement for kids today, girls or guys, what would it be? I
tell them, always follow your dream. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't fulfill that dream. Anything's possible, and you don't ever give up.
It's that simple.
Yes, it is.
Sarah Salty Ferguson, an original Rockford Peach from the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League. Thank you so much. It's always great to see you, my dear.
It's always great to see you, Doug.
And keep
Doug
in
and I
touch.
go way back.
Way back
way
now.
Way back many years.
Yeah, we've done things.
Yeah,
we've seen each other here and there.
Here and there.
And if you want to run into Salty, it's in Orangeville. She's at the carnival every year. You'll see her. And make sure you stop and say hello. She'd love to talk
That's
to you.
right. You betcha.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again after later.